Okay, and welcome to video 30 in my series of AnyRail tutorials. Now this time we're going to be adding some fiddly bits to the drawing we made in video 29. And those fiddly bits look something like this. So we're going to add in the staircases here, here, and here. We'll also put in the roof ventilators, and we'll just put in some lines indicating that there are doors there. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about how to build these ventilators and make them look really good. But for the staircases, I have 3 staircases here and they're all different sizes. And for an AnyRail drawing like this, you don't really need to make them different sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this staircase over here, and then I'm just going to place it here and here. And I'm also going to remove some of the steps. I'm only going to put in 3 steps because otherwise it just gets too tedious to watch. Now the first thing I want to say about putting in fiddly bits like this is you don't really need them. The only reason I'm doing this video is to show you how you can design smaller entities for your objects that you'll be designing. Like I said in video 29, you could just stop with this. And this would be just fine. This is everything you need. You might want to add in the text like I showed you in the last video, but this is really all you need. The only thing I think you might need is if you're doing something over here and you needed to know where those steps were, you could put these steps in, but otherwise, I would stop right here. Let's go back to that other drawing. The second thing I'd like to point out about putting in fiddly bits like this is just don't do it if you don't have to. When I was getting everything ready for this video, it just took me an awful long time to figure everything out. The way that AnyRail handles really small entities is really annoying. And if you get too many of them grouped too close together, you really start screaming at the program. Now granted, it's not a CAD program for doing things like this. It's for designing your track work. And it's nice to be able to put in the building so you can bring your track work up to the building. But it does get very tedious building these things. But I'm going to show you anyway, just simply because, like I pointed out in the last video, I'm crazy and I kind of like doing these kind of things, even though I end up yelling at the computer screen a lot. So let's go back to the other drawing and let's get started. Let's take a quick look at the drawing that I'm going to be working from. And this is the one that has all of my coordinate points that I'm going to be using in AnyRail. And this is the staircase that we're going to be building. Now, I worked out in advance how big the rectangles are. This rectangle here is going to be 0.52 inches wide by 0.79 inches high, like this. And then each step is going to be 0.52 wide by 0.13 high. So that's what I'll be using in my drawing. And then we'll assemble those into a subassembly. And then we'll just pop the whole subassembly into the coordinate points that we need here, here, and here. So let's start making those steps. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to zoom in like this. Give myself a little bit of working room. So I'm going to start by going to Insert, and I'm going to make a rectangle. And there's my rectangle I'm going to be working with. Now let's select this guy. Now I can't come in and grab him because these circles get in the way. So what I'm going to do is come over here, highlight the whole thing, and change my line width. So before we make the steps, I'm going to move the rectangle. And I'm going to move this corner to an XY coordinate that's easy to remember. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select this corner. Come up here, I'm going to say Move Surface, and I'm going to put it at 10. Then I'm just going to drag this a little bit here. Now I'm going to put in my steps. My steps are 0.52 inches wide by 0.13 inches high. So we already have 0.52 in, so let's put in 0.13. So there's our first step. Now I want to change that before I copy it. Okay, now I'm going to do a Control C and I'm going to paste it 2 times. There we go. Now I'm going to select this first step, and this gets difficult because I have to come way over here in order to be able to drag a box around it. And I'm going to select this point, this corner, and I'm going to set that at 10 and 4. And it pops right into place. Now, each step is 0.13 inches. So it should follow that this point right here is going to be 4.13. Let's see. And it is. So we'll come over here and we're going to grab this guy. And we're going to set this point to 10 and 4.13. So if we add 0.13 to 4.13, this point here should be 4.26, and it is. So we'll come down here. We're going to have to drag that a little bit. I'm going to grab this point. You can tell which point you're on by the way the circle bounces up and down. So I'm going to be on this point here. I'm going to do 10 and 4.26. And there we go. We now have our 3 steps and part of our entryway. So now I'm going to come over here and I am going to grab all of that. And now you'll notice when I have selected all of them together, I get another heading up here, another tab that says Groups. So I'm going to click on Groups. And I'm going to just hit Group here. Now, it's almost impossible, I think, to come over here and say Group. And in fact, it won't let me do it. See, it deselected it. So I'm going to come out here, select it again, go to Groups, hit Group. Now it's a group. And I can move it around just like that. Now, it appears that when you group a bunch of entities like this, you can set a coordinate point so you can place them where you want. But when you select it like this, it comes up and it says, what XY do you want? And that's always going to refer to the upper left corner of the entity. Even if I rotate it, it's still going to be the upper left corner of the entity, no matter what position it's in. You'll notice that the XY that's displaying is the same as the XY that I have down below for my mouse coordinates. If I rotate back, same thing. It always goes to the upper left corner, no matter which way your entity is pointing. All right, so let's place this guy onto the building. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see more of the building. And I know from my cheat sheet that we want this corner to be placed at 8.86 in the X and 3.51 in the Y. And there it is. So now we have our first set of steps. And you'll notice that I forgot, and I do this a lot, I forgot to put these steps on their proper layer. So I'm going to come out here and I'm just going to highlight them like that. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, put that on stairs east. Okay, now I have these highlighted already, so I'm just going to do a Control C. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to do a Control V. And I'm going to rotate this guy. And I'm going to rotate him counterclockwise 90 degrees. Hit OK. Now we're going to put this point over here at this point. Because remember, no matter which way it's facing, it's always going to be the upper left. So this point over here works out to be, from my cheat sheet, 4.1 by 7.21. Now I have steps down here. Now I'm going to come over here and I am going to do another Control V, paste that in, and I'm going to rotate this guy the opposite way. I'm going to rotate him clockwise. Now this gets to be a little bit of fun because this is my insert point right here when I select it. But I want to put this point to here. So what I need to do here is I need to know how long this is. And we have all these dimensions. So we know this is 0.79 from here to here. And then each one of these steps is 0.13. So I can add that up. And I get 1.18 inches overall. So what I'll do is I'll look at my cheat sheet here. And I'll say, okay, this is 6.72 inches at that point. And I'll go 6.72 minus 1.18. And I know that the point over here that I need to put it at is an X of 5.54. So let's see if that works. Over here, we already have it selected. We'll go, and we know the Y is 7.21. Click to, so it's not highlighted anymore, and let's zoom in. And it looks like we got it just about where we want it. So now we have our stairs in our drawing. And once again, I proceeded without changing the layer, so let me correct that real fast. Okay, now it's time to put in the ventilators. And the reason I'm putting in these ventilators is it adds a little bit of visual interest, but also it gives you a good example of how you can manipulate a small entity like this for a drawing. So let me remind you what the ventilators look like. So here they are, and the ones we're going to make are a little more accurately drawn than these. I put these together pretty fast, so we're going to make these a little more accurate. Okay, so let's go back to our other drawing, and I'm going to zoom in over here in this corner and get some working room, because we're going to need it. Now, the ventilator I'm going to design is 0.45 inches square. So let's make a 0.45 inch square. And there we go. Now, let's change the line width and its color. And don't ask me why. I want to make it that yellow color. All right, I'm going to pull this down just a little bit like that. Okay. Now the ventilator then consists of two circles inside this square. Now I don't have a scale model ventilator to work with. Now if you have one, you can make these measurements and you can put in, whatever values you need to make it accurate. But for me, I am just going to guess on this. Now my first circle that I am going to put in, the larger of the circles, is going to have a diameter of 0.27 inches. Which means it's going to have a radius of 0.135. Because remember, when you put in a circle, you have to do it by radius. So let's put in 0.135. Add circle. There's our circle. Now let's change his line width. Now we want to place this guy right in the center of this one over here. Now how do we do that? Now, I could move it with my arrow key, but even with the shift held down, it gets mildly confusing, as you can see. And you can't really get it lined up in the center. So let's move it back over here. Let me deselect it. Actually, I need it selected. All right. Now, you'll notice on the circle there is a very small outline box on that circle. And that's what we're going to be using to align it to our square. Now you don't have to do it this way if you don't want to. You could just move it over with the arrows like I showed you, get it as close as you want, and then just leave it like that. But if you want to make a fairly detailed drawing, say you're drawing a vehicle or some other entity that you want to make it look pretty nice, I'm going to show you how to move the things around, and hopefully this will work for everything that you want to do. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select this guy. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select this corner. Remember, I told you can determine what corner you're on by the way this selection circle bounces around. So let's take a look at this guy. Where is he? He's at 9.93. by 5.19. So if we look at our rulers top and bottom, we see we can move him to, you'll see the little red arrows that move on the rulers. And we can see that we could move that corner to 10 by 5. So what we'll do is we will just say move surface, and we'll put it at 10 by 5. Now we have an easy coordinate to remember. So let's move this down a little bit. Okay, so our plan here is to take this square, and we know this square is going to be 0.27 inches across. And we want to place this corner over here so that it's even all the way around. So here's what we're going to do. We know that this is 0.45 and this is 0.27. So we're going to subtract 0.27 from 0.45, and that's going to give us 0.18 inch. Then we're going to divide 0.18 inch by 2, and that's going to give us 0.09 inches. Now we know this point is at a y of 5. So we want to put this point at a y of 5 plus 0.09 inches. So 5.09 inches. At the same time, we need to add 0.09 inches to our x as well. So we'll be at 10.09 and 5.09, and that will center our circle right in our square. So let's try that. So first we'll select our circle. We'll select this corner. Watch where the circles bounce to. Follow the bouncing circle. Select that. Now you notice I got two circles there, but we're still working on this guy here because that's the green one. This other one popped up and it's black and it belongs to our square, but we're concerned about this green one. So let me reselect that. All right, let's go to, and there we go. Our circle is right in the middle. Now I could go to 3 decimal accuracy on this. I mean, right now we're at 1/100th of an inch. We could go to 1,000th of an inch if AnyRail is going to do that for us, because it does say we can do 3 decimal places to the right. But I think a 1/100th of an inch is good enough. Okay, now we need to add the other smaller circle. And that guy I'm calling a diameter of 0.19 inches. So let's go make a 0.19 inch circle. Half of 0.19 is 0.095. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to look at this guy right here and see where this corner is at. Now, it gets a little confusing here, so let me show you. I come in like this, and this first circle that pops up, that's my yellow box. And I can tell it's my yellow box because you'll see I've got that little white line inside the black line there. And that is telling me that I'm working on this square. Now, as I move in, you'll see now I've got this box around the circle. So now I'm working on my circle that's inside the square. That's the way you can tell. So I'm going to move my mouse over slowly. And now I have selected this corner. Click. I've got that coordinate point. So we look up and we see that coordinate point is at 10.09 and 5.09. We know that because that's where we just placed that box. So now we come over to this guy, and we know that he is 0.19 inches. This box is 0.19 inches square. So we're going to do the same thing we did for the larger circle. This box for this circle is 0.27. This one is 0.19. So we're going to subtract 0.19 from 0.27. That leaves us with 0.08 inches. Then we're going to divide that by 2, and we get 0.04 inches. And we're going to add 0.04 inches to each XY coordinate up here for the corner of this circle box. So what do we end up with? We end up with, let's select it. Let me grab that corner. Getting ahead of myself. I'm going to end up with 10.13. and 5.13. And now we have our two circles right in the middle of this yellow box. And once again, I forgot to go to the proper layer, so let's move those entities to the roof vent layer. And then let's grab them again, and we are going to group them. And now we have a ventilator that we can move around easily. Yeah, it's kind of a roundabout way to do it, but if you're using a CAD program, you would design something that's accurate like this. Now, I have many more tools in CAD that would make this design quicker, but this is a good way to do it in AnyRail. So like I said, you don't really have to be this precise. We're doing it down to 1/100th of an inch. I think you can do it down to 1,000th of an inch if you really wanted to. But for designing an object that you're just going to put on your railroad, I would not really go into all this detail. But it does make your object look pretty. So let's place our ventilators. Now I've already got it highlighted, so I'm going to copy it. And I want 3 ventilators. So let's grab this guy. Oops. Grab this guy. And he looks good right about there. Since I really don't know where the ventilators are going, when I build this model, I'm just going to put them like this. And you'll notice the first time I grabbed the ventilator like that, I didn't have to. Now that it is grouped together, I can just come over and select it like that. And you'll notice everything got selected at the same time. And let's put one there. And these poor people working over here, they don't have any way to get air, so let's give them a ventilator as well. And I'm going to call that good enough. Now, the next thing you want to do is just come over here, grab everything. Or if this is the only thing on your piece of paper, instead of dragging around all the entities, I could just do this. I could hit Control A, and that'll select everything. Now we'll come up here, and we'll say Save as Object, and we'll go through the whole thing again, and then we'll save it as an object. Now, when you do manufacturer, unfortunately, there isn't a category for your home-built entities, so you'll just have to pick a place to put it. That's up to you where you want to put it. I think it's a shame that you can't go in and make a user object library, but apparently you can't. I've tried doing that, and it's never worked for me. So if you know how to do it, let me know. But anyway, then you just hit OK, and there's your object. So there you go. I've showed you how to do the fiddly bits for your drawing and how to put them together out of pieces like rectangles or squares or circles, and then use XY coordinates to align them properly. So thanks for sticking with me on this video. I hope that this helps you in a future project, and we'll see you in whatever video we're going to do next.